politicized today. It's kind of sad to me. You can't talk about religion without dealing with politics. And the reason I feel more comfortable in mythology and things like that is that we can take it outside of that, and we can look at it more objectively.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Another kind of strand that runs throughout, these of the comic book the industry is if we talk about let's take X-Men for example, and we can even actually tie in the recent TV series hit Heroes, and what I see as a potential here, and what you mentioned earlier was the fact of what is known as predictive programming. That there could be an element in here, and this is just speculation, and see what you feel about that argument and so forth. But could it be that
I think it's a very valid argument. I think there is a real potential there.
Yeah, but
and there may even be an actuality. I think that the X-Men was created in the early '60s and really had nothing to do with human engineering or genetics. Any sort of outside agenda. It was a science fiction story. It was a fantasy story of a new race of human beings, and it was really probably unconsciously drawing back to the coming race. It had filtered down through many different permutations and ended up as the X-Men. The X-Men is very much a metaphor for people who feel marginalized and who feel marginalized because they're intelligent and you go to public schools where if you seem to be too bookish, you become a target. And I think that's sort of the basic metaphor behind the original incarnation of the X-Men. But the X-Men also became popular in the 70s with gay kids, because gay kids sort of saw this as a metaphor for their feelings of marginalization. I mean, I don't think that was the intent of the writers in creating the stories, but I think that people latch on to these metaphors for their own personal reasons. Today what we see is that we see post-humanism, we see transhumanism.
Yeah.
These technologies, and again, these technologies are not necessarily evil unto themselves. You can use these technologies to help people, or you can use these technologies to control people. And that, I think, is the real danger here, and the real reason that we need to be aware. These stories are very much could lead us into some very troubling directions.
Oh, yeah.
If we do start to engineer a new race of human beings, that didn't work out too well for the Neanderthals. The Cro-Magnons showed up, what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's a lot of danger inherent here, but
well, exactly.
I think we as individuals don't have a tremendous amount of power to control that. I mean, Heroes is a very interesting show because it's what I call plain clothes superheroes. It takes superheroes out of the costumes and makes them more palatable to the general public. And there's a lot of shows like that. I mean, there's Smallville, which has been running for several seasons now. And when he was a high school kid and he doesn't wear the costume or anything like that. So, I mean, these themes are very popular where you take the comics out of the spandex and those fantasy, those power fantasies become very popular with a general audience.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, there is very much a danger there that this could be used to control people and control people's physical development.
Sure.
And I'm believe me, I am not a skeptic about predictive programming at all. I don't think that if you look at history seriously, that you can poo-poo it, because a lot of the people who are involved in it will outright tell you that that's what they're involved with, is using science fiction and literature and fantasy to influence human events. Again, that can either be really bad or be really good. One of the things, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but at the same time I also understand that Star Trek is also a metaphor for the militarization of society. And in the context of entertainment, it's fine. But the troubling possibility is when that leaves the screen, or leaves the TV screen, or leaves the comic book page, and people use that as an excuse to start programming the human condition.
Sure, exactly, and that gets us back to that idea of where the lines might blur a little bit about when TV becomes, so real for people that they can't distinguish. They have. I mean, this is so tiny, but again, I just want to mention it for the sake of what we're talking about here. When you go and see a movie and you see a real life news presenter, for instance, that appear in the movie as themselves to talk about a news story about something that has happened in the film, that is those kind of small things that kind of helps to blur a little bit, I guess, for people the idea. That
becomes a continuum.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where the heck is this? Where was it going? Was this, when did this happen? When I was like, it blurs a little bit. But anyway, talking about this kind of getting people acclimatized to this, to these ideas, and what I find interesting here, and that's why I asked to begin with, is just because of what you just brought up, that there is a potential of some kind of prophetic vision within, those who write comic books, that they knew from, in some way from, not from day one, but this has obviously developed the genre and so forth, but they knew that there is either some kind of natural evolution that is going to take place within, the human race, or there is a technologically, advancement that is going to occur, and this will involve genetics, and this will involve, many other things. For instance, I was watching a Discovery Channel documentary just the other day, where they even laid out... I know
exactly where you're going, yeah.
What?
I know where you're going with this, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I saw this, and they laid it out with in exactly the same way kind of a comic book was laid out. It was called the Real Superhumans or Real Superheroes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you knew it, you saw that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I've definitely studied it and read up on it. Yeah,
exactly. And what was interesting here, among other things, they brought up a guy that was blind. He was born without eyes, but he could draw. They had one guy who could run in the freezing cold up in Lapland, a few miles above, or just below the Arctic Circle, and he didn't, get frostbites or anything like that. And they had one other girl who could see colors when she heard music, and there was what was interesting was that these people were now involved in giving away their DNA basically to different laboratories around the world to be tested.
Wow, yeah.
In order to be in some ways utilized or potentially harvested basically. So I mean, again, just to express this idea that there is a fascinating kind of convergence going on here, but potentially then is it natural evolution, or is this an outside external manipulation? And the fact that the comic books have a central role in this is very interesting. What do you think about that?
Well, there's an old song that goes, you cannot go against nature, because when you do, that's part of nature too. I think what's going on now, it's, as they used to say in the 60s, bigger than the both of us. We can't stop what's happening. We can't control it. It is inevitable. I mean, technological progress seems to have a mind of its own. The only thing that seems to stop it in history is, these immense natural disasters. We can go back to Atlantis. We can go back to Pompeii, things like that. All the earthquakes in Alexandria and such. It seems to just be the march of time and the march of technology are just inevitable. So what you really need to do is prepare yourself how you're going to react to that, how you're going to respond to that. There's no doubt in my mind, because we read about it, that there is, for instance, super soldier programs that are very much a reality. They're not science fiction. They're real. They're happening.
Yeah.
Where they are controlling people's genetics and building cybernetic technologies to create more efficient warriors. These things will go on whether we like them or not. We've got to, as human beings, control our own personal evolution as best we can. And I think that knowledge and learning and awareness is very much a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll hear a lot of people, say particular conspiracy theorists, who will draw lot of these really dire pictures of all these things going wrong in the world, and in many ways they're right. In many ways they're sensationalizing the problem. But then when they sort of come across with their answer to them, it's always a sort of nebulous, fuzzy, feel-goody kind of thing. And I don't know if that's very helpful. What you need to do is, first of all, study history and study the way things have happened. And you need to study what's going on today, and you need to control your personal evolution. You need to take care of yourself. You need to control your health. You need to control your emotions. You need to work as best you can. You need to form very solid relationships with people in your life, family and friends, things that will help you deal with crisis. Because, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that, we're really sort of steamrolling towards a real crisis point in human history.
It seems like
And what I would like people to do, personally, is that if they do study these, read my book. First of all, I'd like them to read my book, for sure.
Of course.
Second of all, if they do decide to take that to the next level, there are examples in comic books and, morals and teachings like that can help you, that you can apply to your life. First of all, let me just say this. This is kind of amusing, because I would go to temple on Friday night, I would go to Mass on Saturday night, and then all day Sundays were church, and church-related events. But really where I learned my sense of right and wrong was from comic book superhero stories. There's a very clear mythology and morality there. And in a lot of ways, it's more clear and less ambiguous than religious teachings can be, because religious teachings are a lot about the group psychology, and that people outside of our group are inherently evil, no matter what they do or believe.
Yeah.
So I think that what we're talking about, what we're seeing, personally you have to deal with as best you can.
Yes.
And the first step to that is being aware.
Exactly, and we need to round things up here for our first segment. But before we do that, I do want to mention, that I think your book is excellent in that way, because it kind of tracks and gives people an idea of the background of the comic book, the history behind it, where some of the characters come from, and how this again has been brought forward. And I think it's a good kind of very good research tool in order to see where why there is such a so much revamping going on. The film industry is invaded by many comic book characters now, and there's so much more of these stories coming out all the time, and we're getting closer to this point. And that's why I really like your book, because it lays out many of the background characters of those people that were involved, but also many of the characters are actually working with it now. And I want to talk about that more in our next segment. People like Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and Alan Moore, and others, of course. But again, I think the book is excellent, Christopher. Job well done, as they say. The book is called Our Gods Wear Spandex, and I want to give everyone who want to get a copy of your book, how would they most easily go about doing that?
The easiest way to do it is through Amazon.com. There's a blog up on the Our Gods Wear Spandex page. There's a lot of excerpts, a lot of illustrations, there's a lot of stuff to read and look at. A lot of information. There's going to be some original material put up on that page, a new essay, and I'm a big fan of Amazon.com. I think they're a great thing. I buy from them all the time, and they're worldwide. So I think that would probably be the best place for your listeners to check out.
Nice.
And if not, their local bookstore or comic book store.
Nice. And people can also find links, I guess, from that to Amazon from your blog, secretsun.blogspot.com, isn't it right?
I don't think I have an active link yet.
You got to put a link.
There's a lot of secondary information that they can read on the blog.
Yeah.
Plus, the blog, I really go further along into symbolism and mythology and modern mythology, because there's an idea that mythology ended in the ancient world, but mythology is something that's constantly happening. It's constantly reinventing itself.